Welcome to the very first video of 2022 of the Movie Buffs, officially.
Yeah,
And
officially.
I only got one thing to say for today's episode.
What is it?
Dun 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 dun. You read the title. You already know what we're going to be talking about.
I wish we heard that theme in the movie. I wish we did.
No, you know what I would have loved? I would have loved the classic Danny Elfman theme. Like the one that they play in the intro.
I would rather see the Bully Maguire theme. I would much rather see the Bully Maguire theme.
The Bully Maguire. No, the one
Yeah.
the one by Danny Elfman. The dun 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 dun. When they
Don't get me wrong. Like all the Spider-Man
intro at the very beginning.
all the Spider-Man have actually a pretty decent score. Like literally all of them. Even the Tom Holland newest ones. I actually do like the score that they do for his Spider-Man.
The score is decent, but like for me, like the one that will always be in my heart is the original one from Danny Elfman, like for the original trilogy.
Well, do you want to get into the episode?
Let's go. Hello, and welcome to the 15th episode of The Movie Buffs. I'm your host, Mansoor.
And I'm Yurka, and today we're here finally talking about Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yes, the damn near month-long wait is over. We were both traveling, so like we really didn't get a chance to like watch it till recently. So, But yeah, I mean, finally we get the opportunity to talk about it because we were like, no matter when we watch it, we'll watch it and we will talk about it because
100%.
there is a lot to unpack here. A lot.
I was just super excited now that we're finally in the spoiler territory. I mean, you did talk about it. This whole thing is spoiler, but they did bring it back. The best Spider-Man actor of all time, Andrew Garfield. I was so excited, so happy.
I was so excited. I loved the reveal. Like, okay, let's just get this out of the way. The reveal, I had a feeling, like before they even showed the CGI and everything, like before they showed the trailers, I had a gut feeling that Maguire and Garfield were going to show up, but I thought they were only going to show up for like maybe the last 20 minutes of the movie or like the last 10 minutes of the movie, but no, like they were there for like a solid like 1/3 of the movie. Like they were there for like a solid 45 minutes, which
they were there for the third act, which was pretty long actually.
Yeah, it was a long third act, but like it was worth it though.
It was worth it. Like it was not just like a cameo performance or like an appearance.
No,
it was like a straight up role. Like it was not Matt Murdock Daredevil.
They each the Matt. Okay, now let's say that the Matt Murdock Daredevil scene. Love that. That was beautiful. And actually, right when they released that movie, and it was actually shown that Matt Murdock or Daredevil was supposed to be in the movie, they're actually now confirming that there's going to be a season 4 of Daredevil.
I mean,
like they're bringing it back.
Of course, they have to at this point. Well, anyway, give me your score. Give me your score.
No, you go first. You go first.
For me, this has to be a 9. My reasoning is I gave Eternals an 8. I felt... No, I mean, you could laugh at that or whatever. But I did feel like I was satisfied with Eternals, and that movie had a lot of high concepts, which it didn't deliver on each concept. However, this movie, it went even higher with concepts and ideas, and given what they wanted to do, they nailed it. So for me, it's a 9. It's not a perfect movie. I will discuss the flaws, but given what they aimed for me, it's like an absolute 9 because I had a blast. It's a great movie. Like the story is actually good. It's not just fan service for the sake of fan service. Star Wars. And yeah, man, like they actually did a damn good job. Apart from a few nitpicks that I will discuss.
Yeah, same here. So honestly, like the 7-year-old, like okay, me from aged like the 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 12-year-old, and 13-year-old inside of me want to scream a 10. but I can't do like
No, I don't think this is. I don't think it's like a near a 10. It's like a
no,
borderline
like
9 for me.
no, like for me, because like the nostalgia was
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
so fucking good. Like the child and teenager inside of me are screaming 10, but like the adult, the film douche adult, pretty much. I give it like 8.5. Because
Reasonable.
no, I mean it was
Very
really fucking
reasonable.
good.
I mean, that's
like I loved
essentially
so
a
many
9. I mean,
aspects
that's
about it. Yeah, well, I mean, again, same as you, I do have my own nitpicks with the movie. Like, it's not perfect, but there's so many concepts and ideas and, like, things that were executed so wonderfully. But then there are also, like, ideas of plot holes and things that are just, you know?
I don't necessarily have any, like, I know there's like obvious plot holes with like the idea of
Yeah.
Peter Parker disappearing. That kind of like the whole idea at the end, what they choose to do is kind of like questionable how it's achieved. But dude, like there is like magic and time travel and fucking multiverse.
No,
how
it's
hard
not,
is
it's
it
not
to
about...
have Peter Parker disappear while maintaining?
No, I'm not
his...
talking about that. I'm not talking about that.
What else?
I'm not talking about that.
Okay,
but,
like, what plot holes?
we'll
do
get
you-
into it. We'll get into it, but let's first hear your nitpicks.
Okay, so I'll just start off with the good, and I won't discuss because like there's obvious goods in this film.
Yeah.
But I'll just say straight up, if you're someone who didn't like this film, you're a fucking idiot, because I know this movie wasn't aiming to be like some aiming for Academy Award type of shit, but
No.
they aimed for
No.
a super 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 high difficult concept of merging three different
Completely different franchises.
yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
They mixed reboots and like something that they were criticized for, they turned into a massive advantage, while essentially also improving, you know, a lot of good reception for the Amazing Spider-Mans now. Like, you know, the fans are screaming for Amazing Spider-Man 3. So what they managed to do is just mind-blowing, a massive achievement. And I can just imagine like John Watts hearing the idea that for the first time, just sitting in front of Kevin Feige. He's like, okay, so what are we going to do this time? Kevin the Hunter? They're like, no, we're bringing in free Spider-Man. He's like, oh, shit. And they managed to do it, man.
Something? They managed to do it, but if I'm going to, like, 100% do Spider-Man 3, but change the fucking director. Because Andrew Garfield was the heart and soul, and he got fucking snubbed for no reason because of a bad story, pretty much. Like, the only...
I'll discuss... we might get into Amazing Spider-Man later, but let's stick to No Way Home for now.
No, but, like, again, I love the idea. And I completely agree.
Yeah.
Not 100%, but I agree, like, 80 to 90% with that statement, okay? So, but, continue with what you were saying with the good. I mean, other than...
I mean,
merging of concepts and...
That otherwise, like, that I think is enough. What I have to say, like, the story is good. They have some awesome scenes. You know, they have the emotions, they have tough decisions to make, they have some awesome fights, hand-to-hand combat, but they also use, you know, some Doctor Strange magic, so they kind of have it all. They manage to be, to the most part, you know, they did good with the villains, Doc Ock, Electro, and Green Goblin,
Yeah.
of course. Sandman, and, you know, I'll get to these parts, to the villains, but... like overall story, like for example, Star Wars fan service. Okay, but here they do fan service, and it's not for the sake of fan service. It actually contributes
I mean, they have a
to the
couple of
story.
winks. They have a couple of winks here and there for
You
like
know,
ultra fans, like
I'm something of a scientist
something
myself.
of a scientist myself.
Yeah.
Yes,
My
yes.
back.
I love.
Yeah.
Yes. The endorsement of the memes and just sewing it in so like
So well, I mean,
masterfully.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so
Like,
I mean,
anyways,
for me that's kind of, you know, it's a great movie, and I'll get to the nitpicks because that's what we want to discuss here.
Yep.
I have two nitpicks essentially. The bigger one that kind of slightly is like the biggest one I noticed, and the second one was kind of more when I was thinking about the movie. So the first one I'll just say straight up is CGI, man. Like CGI in this film is just super super questionable at parts, especially when you bring back villains from 10 years ago or just 7 years ago or how much yeah, the two previous trilogies or duologies with Andrew Garfield. The CGI just stands out so much because Sandman looks worse, Lizard looks worse, Electro, though, like his costume looks better, the CGI I would say was better in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Doc Ock, also at parts I would say almost worse. The only one that had
what?
At parts, I'm not saying always, but like how they used like these practical arms before, like with these puppeteers, that almost like looked more real in Spider-Man 2 than now. The only one who I think like in terms of visual effects had a clear advantage was Green Goblin.
No, but actually, the effects that they did on Alfred Molina were amazing.
Oh yeah, like he was good, but the ones I'm talking about more again are like also arms, the free Spider-Man costumes. Like Andrew Garfield had such amazing CGI in his movies on his costume. The same with Tobey Maguire, and in this movie they kind of just looked like, I don't know, free kind of PNG files that they downloaded from Blender. I don't know.
No, it wasn't.
Like, God. As much as I loved the scenes where like the free Spider-Man are swinging, it kind of just looked like, God. I don't know, for kind of stock 3D models from Turbo Squid. Like I loved it, but just the CGI pissed me off so many times, especially on the costumes and on the villains. You could see it so much that the MCU, like, I'll say this, in the Far From Home, also not the best CGI, but that kind of also made narrative sense because Mysterio was using almost visual effects, so it doesn't have to look perfect. Whereas here, where you bring back Tobey Maguire, who always looked great, and Andrew Garfield, of course, he had the best CGI out of the three, and now you bring him in, and they essentially look the same. Like, it was hard to differentiate them, and their costumes are not this. I mean, for me at least, like sometimes
I was able to tell the difference between them because like it's not only about the design of the costume, because also like one thing that and other than the eyes, like the masks, you could tell by the mask eyes, shape and like the pattern.
But still, I feel like the CGI for me was a little questionable. And the second thing I want to discuss, then I'll let it go over to you, is the villains, essentially, though they managed to justify why they're there. And of course, the MCU Peter Parker, Tom Holland, had a good motivation against Green Goblin to like go after him because he of course killed Aunt May. But they set it up.
The only other death in the entire MCU, like the only other legitimate death in the entire MCU.
It was other than what?
I mean, other than Iron Man and maybe Black Widow. Yeah, that's it. Those are the only like actual deaths in the MCU.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good scene, but also a little predictable, but that doesn't matter. It was still a very good, well-executed scene.
It was, even though it was predictable, like, it was still very impactful.
Yeah, it was good, great acting,
very impactful.
Great setup, and yeah, it was a great scene. It was a great scene. But,
it was, overall.
The thing that I kind of minded was what I really loved about watching the trailers for this film. It looked like New York was finally involved. And these are the parts that I loved in the two previous reboots, or like, worlds, was with Tobey Maguire. New Yorkers were always kind of involved with helping Spider-Man kind of, protecting his identity as well, on that train sequence.
Oh, yeah.
You could see that New York was in danger. And the same was with, although in the Amazing Spider-Man series, it was sometimes kind of weird how they were just kind of all standing and looking at a fucking guy who was destroying the city, and they were kind of just standing as a crowd. But it at least helped to like.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense because there's actually something called bystander syndrome, where like you can't help but stand and watch because you don't know what the fuck to do. You're just in such shock that you're just frozen there watching. in awe.
Yeah,
So,
and what it also creates was kind of like a link between New York and Spider-Man, and that's kind of what makes Spider-Man, him protecting New Yorkers and kind of them cheering him on. And the villains in both the previous movies go against New York, whereas Tom Holland, the first one, Vulture, didn't really go against New York. He was kind of his own little side mission, and I was like, okay. Then Mysterio, of course, was in London and like in Europe, so that of course was different.
yeah,
as well.
Like Italy, London.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
it was a mix.
And Prague, of course.
Yeah.
But
You're really hinging on that one. But anyways.
But now I was like, yes, they're finally in New York. They kind of put this whole thing that like he's looking at the posters, he's talking to the media, and it looks like he's gonna have to protect New York and New Yorkers. But the villains, there's like 5 villains, and I mean, except for Green Goblin killing Aunt May, what did they do? Nothing. Lizard kind of bursts out of a van, and I would love them attacking New York, because like they don't do nothing. The story seems personal, but it's really not. It's only Green Goblin who made it personal.
Yeah, the only personal aspect was Green Goblin, exactly.
And I would love to see New York in danger. Like, personally, why the hell was Sandman and Lizard in this movie? I get a bit of Lizard.
I was just like, part of my nitpick. I'll get to that, but like, continue.
Sandman 100%. Lizard, I think, had a couple of good moments, because like he was kind of in line with his character in The Amazing Spider-Man. But Sandman's like completely different. Like at the start when you meet him when he's protecting Peter, you're like, okay, so it's still the same guy. But from that point on, he just turns into someone completely different. And then they use stock footage from the previous movies to have them go back to their form, and they don't even bring back the actors to say something or whatever. It was so weird. Like you could see it so much that that those scenes just didn't fit in. They didn't speak at all. And especially with Amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield was more linked, I would say, with Dr. Connors, the Lizard, than Electro. So why would he then go talk to Electro rather than Dr. Connors? Exactly. Yeah. So, like, why bring them in? Like, they didn't have anything to do it, like, anyway. So, they actually, I would say, they vastly improved Electro. He actually had some character development. Like, he wants to stay here. He likes the energy. They improved his design. And I feel like he was very good. They should have just, I think, stuck it to Electro, Green Goblin, and Dr. Octopus. They should have just had 3 villains.
Well, I mean...
And, go from there. You would allow more time for these kind of personal connections. I don't know. That's like my thing. They didn't have to be in the movie because it seems personal, but you have 5 villains, 4 of them do complete. I mean, yeah, Doc Ock, I guess, like destroys a bridge or something. I don't know, but they don't do anything. Like it should have been either New York more in danger, that these guys just go out and just attack New York, try to, I don't know, just kill everyone or whatever, or just stick it to 3 villains, because really, Lizard, okay, but Sandman was like abused. He was like fucked in the ass. Poor Thomas Hayden Church, man.
Yeah. So now to the good on my end. Like, one aspect that I absolutely loved about the movie was Willem Dafoe. Like,
you mean Willem the Goat?
Willem the Goat, yeah, that's right. Holy shit, he brought something to the movie that I didn't know that I needed before, but he got it, and he got it hard. Like, he just killed it. Like, he was probably he was phenomenal. Probably one of my favorite aspects of the movie. And I love that they brought back Alfred Molina. I love that they brought back, like, every single person originally for, like, heroes and villains and everything. But, okay, so so this is where I get into nitpicks, because I can praise all of the scenes that Maguire, Garfield, and Holland were in together. I can praise the performances, of what's her name, who was playing Aunt May. I could praise all of that, but like we already heard all the praises, and I 100% agree with everything that you said. I just wanted to bring up Willem Dafoe because like Willem Dafoe did a phenomenal job. Same thing with Alfred Molina. So yes, most of the villains were fucked in the ass. I have to agree because especially there wasn't much done. And like one of the biggest aspects of Spider-Man, as you mentioned, is that like there's this entire idea of heroism towards New York. And like the base of Spider-Man is New York, you know, Queens, Brooklyn, Hell's Kitchen, all of that. Like,
but
he's
it's
the main
like
guy.
Manhattan, like most of the time, because that's where you got the skyscrapers and the crowds. Like I'll just say I watched actually the Amazing Spider-Man 2 films today, and that was like very prominent there, and I like that aspect. But continue.
Yeah, so one thing I have to say is that like the only thing that I would have made different from that entire like confrontational scene, if they had that in the middle of the city, like and actually like with an output effect of actually destroying the city while like taking this entire confrontation, then that would have made like a hell of a difference because at least it would have given that like city interaction. Like now all three of them have to protect the city against those 5 villains.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's a great point.
That's the first thing. Second thing is they should have used more of Doc Ock. Considering the fact that like Doc Ock managed to get the voices turned off, like they should have utilized that idea more of like what good Doc Ock can do with the other 3 characters, or at least with Tom Holland before like the other 3 show up.
Or keep him evil for a longer period of time, not just the
Exactly, keep him evil for a longer period of time.
But that's true. That's a good
point. He just disappeared good. As soon as he turned good, he just 5 minutes later, he's gone. And then he comes back and you're like, wait, is he evil? Oh no, he's on their side. But wait, what the fuck?
Alfred Molina was great as well.
No, Alfred Molina was wonderful.
Like I loved seeing him again.
I loved seeing him again too. And so another one of the things that I'd wanted to bring up actually was I agree on the CGI in a lot of aspects, but like in the case of the suits and everything, like I don't agree with that much on the suits, but I agree more like with the idea of like how Doc Ock's arms like looked way better in the original series, considering that like he, you know, like because they were practical at the time when Sam Raimi did it.
Yeah.
So obviously they look better then than it does now, but at least now it looked decent, especially like with the idea of like
the arms actually look good, but the biggest ones I would say is Lizard, Sandman, and the suits. That's the 3 big ones.
Well, I mean, okay, the suits not as much. Sandman 100%. Lizard was and Sandman was because as much as I do not like the Amazing Spider-Man duology,
I watched it and I was surprised I actually ended up liking it. There's like super questionable, stupid, idiotic parts, but overall, like, I like them both better than Homecoming.
Fair enough. But, okay, so in regards back to that, is that, like, okay, so, not in the CGI way, but, like, as you were saying, most of the villains got fucked in the ass, especially, like, Sandman. Sandman had no intention of really being there. He wasn't even, like, one of the main villains in the original trilogy. He was, like, a side villain that was thought to be killed off in the beginning, but then joins forces with Venom in the original trilogy for, like, no reason. Like...
But, like, Sandman also is a character that has a lot of depth. You know, he has the daughter. He has his motivation. So...
He has his motivation, he has his background story, he has his personal connection, he has all that, but, like, the thing is, in this movie, he was the most useless character. And as you said, like, he does not have the same personality as he did before when he was in the original trilogy. Because in the original trilogy, yeah, he didn't trust anyone, but, like, he was still loving and as helpful as he can be. So, like, him just coming off as an asshole straight away after trying to help after trying to help Tom Holland, it was a full 180. Like, it didn't make that much sense.
Yeah, true.
Like, I agree we could have cut out some villains, but I think it should have been the opposite. Instead of keeping Electro, we should have changed Electro with Dr. Connors. because the three most prominent villains from the first three movies. Because then at least, like, because when you think of prominent villains of the original trilogy, who do you think? You think Doc Ock and Green Goblin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you think of prominent villain in The Amazing Spider-Man, who do you think? Do you
Dr.
think more
Connors,
Dr. Connors? Exactly.
Rhino.
Yeah, no, he was the best villain, honestly. Wonderful fucking
exactly.
So yeah, no, that's why I'm saying, like, if they just shaved down the rest of them and kept Dr. Connors, Doc Ock, and
it's true that, like, if it was 2 and 2, it would also make a lot of sense. So good point.
But yeah, but like again, 2 and 2 does make sense, but like
I like what they did with Electro in this film, so I wouldn't cut him out. Maybe just give all the Sandman Lizard parts to just Lizard.
Yeah,
maybe.
Give the Sandman Lizard parts just to Lizard. And the thing is, Lizard barely does anything. Like, his personality is the same and all that, but like he just stays downstairs in the truck. He doesn't cause shit. He just sees them escaping. And he's like, "Oh shit, that's my cue."
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of weird. That he kind of just like, "Oh, let's go."
He's like, "Oh shit, okay, villainy, nice."
Exactly.
Because the thing is, Dr. Connors was never a villain. He just wanted to. He wanted to like bring a human like he was a madman.
Yeah.
But he thought
in
a
similar way that like kind of Green Goblin, he was like consumed by the serum, I guess, or like whatever he injected into his arm.
Yeah. But like thing is, originally Osborn, like he wanted to actually create.
Yeah, I know.
Like a new way to advance the military. He wanted to protect his company. He wanted to provide for his son. He wanted all that
he wanted to save himself in The Amazing Spider-Man. That's why like he was really motivated. Otherwise, like Dr. Connors would lose his job.
Yeah, no, and Dr. Connors was trying to save his own life and also like evolutionize like humans against disease and everything. So like they're both not evil, but like what they've done to themselves have caused them to become more evil.
Exactly.
So like they're not bad people. They just got fucked over pretty much by their own experiments.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying like it would have made more sense. I mean, again, like I completely agree with the 2 and 2. So yeah, if it was 2 and 2, or at least 3 against 3, then that would have made way more sense, especially like the more prominent villains. Because then at least Tom Holland has a stronger connection to Green Goblin because he killed Aunt May.
Yep. Then you could keep the connection of Toby with Doc Ock,
and you can keep the connection between Dr. Connors and Garfield.
Yeah, exactly.
So and for like my final point and nitpick in the movie is that. So, I understand the idea of wanting to bring back all the villains. I understand the idea of the multiverse and all that shit and the spell. But one thing I do not understand is why the fuck did they bring Electrode into this? Electrode was the only villain who did not know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
I heard that as well. But like, also, like, he knew that from Harry Osborn in his universe, because that they, like, collaborated in the end.
Yeah, but he didn't. Not really.
He knew that Peter Parker was linked to Spider-Man, and in the final fight against...
He knew that they were linked, but they didn't know that Peter Parker was actually Spider-Man. Dr. Octavius knew.
If you watched The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Gwen calls Spider-Man Peter in the final fight right in front of Electro. So I guess like before his death, he could have linked that up without...
Okay. You were saying? Yeah. Knocked my mic, that's why. But yeah, you were saying?
I was saying that Gwen calls Spider-Man Peter in the final fight right in front of Electro. So I guess like he could have linked that without actually, speaking it out loud like Green Goblin did at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But I do agree that like that it wasn't like an obvious thing. Like Dr. Connors would be much more of an obvious choice for
Dr. Connors, Doc Ock, and like Green Goblin, obviously. So like those made more sense. And
Exactly.
Sandman, I mean, yeah, it made sense because like he found out in the end when
They should have just left Sandman be, because like
yeah,
they had no like they had no use for him.
yeah, but okay. Why the fuck did they bring in what's his name? Tom Hardy's Venom. He does not know who Peter Parker is, and he doesn't know who Spider-Man is. Like,
So I
there
heard I heard I'm sorry. I heard an interview with the writers, and they said they initially actually wanted to have the Sinister Six with Tom Hardy's Venom being one of the villains, which is like utterly stupid in the first place. But like
because
their idea and their first thinking behind it was like that symbiotes have like universal links between them, so that Venom was the one who actually knew that Peter Parker's Spider-Man somehow, I guess. I don't know. The bigger plot point or like plot hole was for me personally, the bigger plot hole for me is how can a piece of Venom get stuck in the universe
yeah,
when
that's I was
Venom's
about to mention
literally
that.
being, sucked out. Like you like randomly, like your finger just stays in that universe. Like oh well, shit. I
Yeah,
don't know.
no. It's like
Dr. Connors loses his other arm, and he's just like this
I
kind of
was
chicken
I
arm.
was about to make a Naruto reference,
Doctor
but like
back
Toby
in his
just
world.
like, oh yeah, part of you gets stuck.
Yeah. Oh shit! His head
Oh,
just stays
shit.
there. He gets decapitated.
Yeah,
Yep.
my God.
That
But-
that is a little plot hole, but dude, like, honestly, like they did a good job with coming up with a story to bring everyone in. So I
Well,
honestly,
one thing,
there's
one thing that was missing, one thing that is missing, which is another nitpick, like in that same vein of nitpick, but like, where the fuck are Aunt May and Mary Jane?
and Gwen
If they're
Stacy.
bringing back everyone, exactly, if they're bringing back everyone who knew Peter Parker as Spider-Man, where's Gwen Stacy? Where's
I
Mary
mean,
Jane?
they kind of explained it a
Where's
little bit
Aunt May?
because like Doctor Strange said some. He said like some got through, so it doesn't like imply all the people in different universes who knew Spider-Man got through. So just some. So this was like this just ended up being the sample. So I kind of think that that's all right. Like I would love to see especially Gwen Stacy come back because Andrew Garfield
That would have been amazing. That would have been amazing. At least he would have had like a bit of closure on that, and actually being able to see Mary
Gwen
Jane
Stacy.
from Maguire's world would have been amazing. Honestly,
I don't need her because like she wasn't the best. Like I don't know, she wasn't the best part of his movies. Honestly, his bond with
Fair enough.
Harry Osborn was way more interesting to me than because like she just came off like a bitch. Honestly, to me, I don't know. Gwen Stacy was way more likable, and like Emma Stone actually did some pretty decent acting with
yeah.
with Andrew Garfield.
Oh yeah, no, their chemistry was wonderful. Honestly,
Like they had the best chemistry. Like and Andrew Garfield, honestly, hands down, is the best actor to portray Spider-Man. He isn't like the best fit for Peter Parker because like he just comes
but
off
yeah,
way too
no,
cool
I
in his
agree.
movies.
I agree. I agree.
And,
Okay, so how I
but that was
see
also
it,
kind of like the writing direction that they kind of made Peter Parker cool, like with skateboards and stuff. I don't think fans just like that, so that's why it's like got.
Peter Parker's a nerd.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta understand
Yeah.
is that, like, you gotta find a good balance. So, like, if you want the perfect Peter Parker, that'd be Tobey Maguire. Like, the sweet nerd who just, like, is there to help out, but, like, very introverted, but still tries to
exactly.
live day-to-day life. The best Spider-Man would be Garfield, because, like, he's quick-witted,
100%.
he's with it,
Yes.
he's, like, exactly.
He's like a PG-13 Deadpool in the fight.
Exactly.
You know, he kind of, and it's perfect. That's what
is
Spider-Man's supposed to be.
Exactly. Spider-Man is supposed to be a PG-13 Deadpool.
Yep. Without breaking the fourth wall, of course.
Yeah, but the best young Peter Parker and young Spider-Man would be Tom Holland. Like, the one who's just trying to find his footing.
He's
They're
but
like,
he's
this
getting
is-
better
He's
with
like,
every movie, man.
yeah, no, because, like, he's, like, what you'd expect from the comics. Because, like, the comics at the
Yeah.
very beginning, when he just discovers his powers and, like, is trying to, like, live life, do everything, and all that shit, like, that is the spot-on version of him.
Can I just also say something for all the people who are like hating like Spider-Man in the MCU is too much like Tony Stark. do they just like want a third iteration of Peter Parker living alone in his apartment, being broke with Aunt May, like the third time in a row? The MCU did something different with Spider-Man, and I actually think it was good that they
But
did it.
by the way, that Spider-Man already does exist. He's a Spider-Man from a different universe. Same way that there are alternate
Yep.
universes in the DCEU, there is actually also a different Spider-Man for every different Universal iteration. So
Yep.
the Spider-Man that they are basing it on is based on a real comic adaptation. So anyone who says that, suck it.
And plus they just did it with the ending where he's nobody. He lives in his own apartment. He has that classic suit, although it was a tad bit too shiny and the CGI was terrible again.
Yeah, that the suit was a little shiny, but I like that. I love how this is the longest blue ball explanation for his origin story.
But it actually works. I like how
Yeah.
they ended it because like that's what fans wanted, and they took this unique story that I actually like, especially Far From Home, is a story that I really like, and I like the journey that he's been on. And now that let's say we get one more movie of just Peter Parker being Peter Parker, maybe we get a Sinister Six movie, and then we could get, let's say, a movie where he becomes like a mentor figure to someone like Miles Morales. MCU does great stuff, so I think that we'll get a good arc again.
I mean, a live action of Spider-Man's Miles Morales would be wow. That'd be amazing, but we'll see.
And, like,
Because the thing is, so far, I love how they're doing it with the Sony animation. Like, the Sony animation so far has been kicking it and keeping it so damn well that, like, I'm curious to see where it would go with live action, but I wouldn't want to change what they have with the animation. You get what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And like there is a slight risk where like the live action version might be a bit worse than the animation version in the Spider-Verse movies. So,
yeah,
but I
like,
think
they already set the bar
100%.
so high for like.
But I think
animation.
Miles Morales is coming because especially the exchange with Electro, where like there's a black Spider-Man somewhere out there that Andrew Garfield had. So I think Miles Morales is at least in like the book of plans for Kevin Feige and
I'm
crew.
sure. I'm sure. At some point or another.
Exactly. Well, you got anything else to say about No Way Home?
No, I've pretty much said everything. I mean, if you want me to sit here and gloat for the next 2 hours, then sure. Based off purely off of nostalgia, then sure. Otherwise, no, I don't have anything else to say.
I mean, I just loved all the scenes with Maguire and Garfield. Man, it was just such a pleasure to watch.
It
the
really
Free Spider-Man.
was.
They did the pointing meme like 2 times. They did so much stuff. Like it was great.
It was like, you don't understand, in my theater, when all 3 of them swung together and then landed off the side of the Statue of Liberty with like that one cam shot with like all of them lined up. My theater had a fucking standing ovation at that scene. I'm like,
Yeah,
I agree.
I wish I had that feeling because that moment was like I was like, the CGI. It's awesome. Like I was freaking out. I was like, the CGI. Why fuck it up? Why not like make it just look perfect? Why not take the people who did the CGI on the Amazing Spider-Man series and have them take care of everything because it would just look way better.
Well, I mean, Amazing Spider-Man had really good CGI, but I wouldn't say amazing CGI.
I would say amazing CGI. Like, the CGI there is, like, far beyond any other Spider-Man movies, Maguire, of course, that was, like, a different era. But
it was a different era, but, like, with Maguire, most of it was practical. That's what made it.
Yeah.
That's what made it age so well. I mean, other than a couple of, like, the CGI sequences, like, it still looks really fucking good for a movie that came out like in the early 2000s.
Tom Holland's movies are like far worse than the Amazing Spider-Man CGI, in my opinion, because like the CGI there just the Amazing Spider-Man kind of feels like.
What about the cross-bridge dimension when he put him into the mirror dimension? That CGI was actually really good.
No, that CGI was good because I'm pretty sure they brought the people who did Doctor Strange CGI, and
Back,
you
yeah.
know, that was awesome, of course. But I don't know. I just wish, you know, the final fight against Electro and even the one in Times Square. These are just, say what you want about Amazing Spider-Man 2. There's so many BS stuff. It should have been just cut down about Peter choosing if he's supposed to have Gwen in his life, about Electro, and maybe Harry Osborn, but all the parent stuff should have been just cut.
Well, other than that, I mean, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing really much else left to say.
I just wanted to say one more time, it's a great movie, and I can't wait to watch it again. I didn't see it for the second time in the movie theaters.
100%.
I want to, and I hope I'll get to. Otherwise, I just can't wait till
I
it
watched it
releases.
twice in theaters, and I was so happy that I did, honestly. So, go for it, man.
100%.
It's a good opportunity.
And I
well,
just want to say one more time, standout performance in this movie for me, other than Willem the Goat.
Willem the Goat.
Andrew Goatfield.
Andrew Goatfield.
Yeah,
Alright, cool.
he was.
Come on, you can't hate on Maguire's performance. You can't hate. You can't
I don't want to
sneeze at
hate.
Maguire's performance.
I don't want to like hate on him. He was good, but I think Maguire stood out more. Like when he's in a good movie, you could just see that, like just the small bits of him looking at, you know, Tom Holland and Zendaya, and how they're like he's kind of jealous that he kind of still has someone else in his life, and then he's, you know, and the emotion that he just brought in, like
you mean Garfield? You mean Garfield?
Oh, sorry,
Garfield, not Maguire.
yeah, sorry, Garfield. And then like
I was
when he
about to be
catches Zendaya,
sounds like Maguire got
that
married.
redemption. Yeah, sorry. No, but then when he like also catches,
Hello?
Zendaya, and like the relief and like the redemption that he has just like with one look, it was great, man. He did a great job with this. With what he was given. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's it for me and No Way Home. Anything else to add?
No, that's it for me and No Way Home too.
Awesome.
All right.
It was a fun, long episode.
Thank you guys so much for
yeah.
watching. It wasn't that long, actually.
Ooh, we'll see.
Well, not one of our longer ones, but not one of our longest ones, honestly. But thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Please drop your questions, comments, or concerns down below. Leave a like. Definitely subscribe for any upcoming videos. And
See ya.
For next week, we actually have a best and worst video.
Oh wait,
Did you just see it?
Did I say see ya too soon? Because you were like kind of cutting out. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So I was
Could you go
saying,
again on this part?
like, comment, subscribe. Basically, next week we're actually going to be doing a best and worst listing for 2021. So look forward to that. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you then. Peace.
See ya.